Hey, Tanner. All right, so
Hey,
let's do it. We're building a teacher evaluation workflow today.
let's do it. This is our first time doing a live pairing. We prepared nothing, so let's go ahead and build something.
Cool. Well, first things first. What's teacher evaluation? I'm not
Okay.
familiar with that workflow.
Yes. So I have a little bit of context. Just chatted with somebody about it, and here's the deal. They work at with a bunch of different public schools. They're an
Mhm,
online learning center.
mhm,
And so there are many different schools, and at those schools, there are teachers and principals. And it's
mhm,
important for their own professional development and as a state regulation for
mhm.
teachers to get evaluations once a year.
Yeah.
And those evaluations are done by the principal.
Okay.
So for this online organization that works with many different schools, they need to sort of centralize this process, and they have a workflow for doing it right now. And basically, there are several requirements. A
Mhm,
principal needs to be able to fill out a form,
mhm.
and the form is the evaluation for a teacher. So they also need to be able to link that to a specific teacher that's kind of under their observation.
Okay.
Once they do that, a few things happen. We need notifications. We need to send an email to the person who filled out the form and to the teacher who received the evaluation.
Okay.
And in the email, just sort of like a summary of
Mhm,
what the evaluation was. And why that's important is for their records and so that the teacher
mhm,
has the opportunity to sort of appeal some sort of evaluation or request
mhm.
changes in some way. So we need to offer a way to um, submit a form that not only updates that evaluation in a way
Yeah.
that says, hey, this teacher is requesting changes, but also sends the notification again to both parties as well.
Okay.
So, any questions on it so far?
No questions so far. I think I've been taking notes so that I can structure the workflow afterwards. But I think so far it makes sense. So we have two parties. We have a teacher and a principal.
Yep.
And the principal is the one filling in the evaluation form. Teacher gets notified they've been evaluated, and then they have a chance to either accept or appeal, I think is the term. And if they do appeal, they probably want to provide a reason to say, okay, well, I disagree, here's why. Or maybe it's not necessarily disagreement, but they have a chance to appeal. In which case he goes back to the principal, and at that point, what do? Do they get to update the evaluation, or yeah, what happens at that point, I guess, if there is an appeal?
Good question. I think the principal needs the ability to go back, actually, not just for this case, but in general, go back and look at all of the evaluations that they are assigned to. So this might be where like roles and permission come into play a little bit. Is a requirement says
Mhm,
I, as a principal, need access to like all my teacher evaluations, and
mhm,
to the question in particular, I believe there is a sort of approve reject to really simplify things flow that happens once the appeal is made.
mhm,
So yeah, simple workflow of once teacher fills out the request to appeal, um, principal goes back in, sees the record, sees the updated information, makes a
mhm.
decision. Let's call it yes or no to be simple.
You got it. Okay. And in the case of a no, if they say yes, is it a new cycle with the teacher? Or do we keep it simple? Okay, you got the appeal, you made some changes, it's done.
let's let's keep it simple for now. Let's say it's just
Okay.
done. We made the changes, and maybe they update one of the parts, maybe a
Okay.
rating for the teacher.
Cool.
One other thing I'll mention too that came up in the call was sometimes on the appeal, the teacher needs to provide like attachments. Um,
Mm,
so sort of a way of showing like screenshots or like a file or something like that. So um, that sort of evidence is important for the principal
see.
looking and making that decision.
Got it. Cool. I have everything I need. So maybe we can actually just dive in and start building. And, obviously, as we go through that, things may show up and then we'll update on the fly. But yeah, go ahead.
One thing I'll mention too, which was kind of a big pain point, just to give more context to anybody watching, the way they're doing it today is they're using Google Forms, Google Spreadsheets, and a bunch of different add-ons in Google Spreadsheets. And basically, one of the big problems is that to look for when the teacher appeals. Okay, so stepping back, the process is Google form for principal, submit, send that data to a spreadsheet. There's a separate form that a teacher gets, and that can update a cell in that row. And really the way that they've found to do this is by using a add-on called Autocrat, which is basically a time-based job that looks for updates and then will trigger. So the time-based nature of it sometimes locks up the table when other people are trying to write to it from the other forms, which will then result into erroneous error messages that cause concern for the principals.
Got it. Got it. Okay, cool. I think that's very useful. So let me share my screen and then we can get started and improvise here.
Do it.
Cool. Are you able to see my screen over here?
Yes, I see Notion.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I took some notes here just as you were describing. That always helps me to really understand who are the parties, what are some of the requirements, what are some of the pain points as we start to think about the process. So like we said, it's really around the teacher and the principal. Sounds like the teacher will mostly be interacting with through email and forms. And then the principal is going to be the one filling in some of these evaluation, moving things down the pipeline and really managing this whole workflow. And so if I'm just, before we dive into Flowdash or any tool, let's just break it down, I guess, the process, I guess. So first, and the principal, completes an evaluation form. This is where they would say for this teacher, these are all the evaluation factor, which I guess brings me to my to another question. I guess what is in said evaluation? What do they use to evaluate? I mean, some of the things I know is probably just the teacher name, I imagine, but what are some of the other criteria as they're being evaluated on?
It's a great question, and to be honest, I'm not a big expert on it. Maybe we could do a little bit of Googling or just kind of off the cuff brainstorm what we'd imagine. One thing I learned is that oftentimes the fields in the evaluation form are numerical or sometimes checkboxes. So thinking, for example, there may be a way of rating how a teacher, how they perform in a reading assessment. Maybe they teach English and it's about reading. How do they perform with that, for example, just to simplify in the classroom? And my guess is there's probably a rating of proficient, advanced, needs work, something like this.
Yeah, cool. Well, let me just quickly, I guess, pick one of the first forms here. Okay, maybe we can see here. So it looks like in this one, no idea what's the proper one, but it's basically a 5-step rating around different factors. So teacher is well prepared for class, knows his or her subject, organized, and whatnot. So maybe for now we just pick 3 and we build for that. And obviously in practice we would have the whole list, but I think maybe starting with just 3 can be good enough for the example. So maybe well prepared. So teacher is well prepared for class. teacher knows its subjects. And I think the third one was is organized. So teacher is organized and neat. And then maybe we'll have a long form commentary, additional, information. I imagine just getting a rating without more color is probably not the greatest way to get an evaluation. So I'm going to go here and just imagine there's a little bit more that can be provided. And it looks like for each of these, it's a rating from 1 to 5. And so I'll just mark it here that the rating is 1. Let's just do 1, 2, 3. Again, keep things simple. And what we have here, rarely, sometimes, and then most of the time. So 1 is rarely, sometimes, and then all the time. Again, just keeping things simple for us. Cool, so that's the first step. The principal completes an evaluation, sends it over, fills it in. And then what happens next is there are 2 things that happen, right? One is email is sent to teacher and principal with a summary, I guess, with evaluation scorecard. And right after that, an email is sent to teacher to approve or appeal, I guess, the evaluation. So this is really a chance for the teacher to look at it and decide, okay, well, this looks great, or this is not valid, and here's why, provide additional documents. At that point, there's a bit of a fork. So if, it's approved by the teacher, and I'll just highlight this here, is when evaluation is complete. Otherwise, it goes to maybe evaluation is under review by the principal. And at that point, if it is under review by the principal, they just, make edits and then mark it as done. And well, again, maybe in practice, it kind of goes back, there's a second round. We'll just keep it simple, but I think that's basically the process. Anything that's not captured here?
I think this is a great way of a simplified workflow. One thing I would add is I think it may be important to trigger a notification, maybe another email, once it's complete, once it's in the approved stage.
Got it. So maybe when it's approved, send a final email to teacher and principal. This is really your email that says, okay, the evaluation is officially completed at this point, versus the first one is more of a draft, basically, or in progress, but you still have a chance to appeal.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. Well, that's great. I think once we have the process, what I usually like to do is think about the stages of this workflow. And again, doing a lot of that upfront work makes building the workflow just that much easier. And so I know we're here in Notion for a little bit longer before we dive and start building, but I think it all pays off down the line because we're already starting to see some of the information we need to capture, some of the transitions we need to think about. And so once it's clearly laid out in our mind, I think we'll be able to fly through the actual building phase.
You must have been good at writing essays and a nice outline. Sometimes I'll just start writing and take way longer.
Yeah, the outline is the easy piece, and then the writing is where I struggle. So we'll see how it goes further down.
Good plan.
But yeah, I guess for in terms of stages, I'm just trying to think here. So I mean, you have completed, and then he goes. We may have what we have basically. It sounds like I'll just write it here: workflow stages.
Yeah.
And I guess the workflow stages, just as a reminder for everyone watching, is basically when you have an evaluation, you can be only in one stage at any given time. So it's really the status of that evaluation. And so maybe at first it's, in draft. Who knows, maybe the principal doesn't fill in everything on the spot. You work on it, you come back to it. And so it's in draft mode, I would say. Then you submit it to the teacher. And you're waiting to hear back. What does the teacher think? And so in here, it's waiting for teacher approval. And this is really once we've sent the email, the teacher gets to appeal or approve. Let's say the appeal, then it would be under appeal. Either that, or we can call it waiting for principal approval, but maybe appealed evaluation, something along those lines. And then finally, it goes into the approved or completed, maybe, since it's not always approved, but it's always completed at some point. And I think that's, I think those are the main stages we probably want to have here. We'll keep it simple as we build. We'll see if anything else comes up. But for now, I think that may be what we have.
Yeah, I think this is good. I think we can easily see how we can draw more forks off of this process, especially once we dive into Flowdash, thinking about, for example, if a teacher hasn't taken action and approved or appealed yet, set something up that sends them a reminder email to come back to Flowdash. But again, these are things that we can just add by changing the flow in the flow builder.
Great. Well, let's get started. Let's hop right into Flowdash here and create our first workflow in this case. So we'll call it teacher evaluation. Perfect. Let's create the workflow. Cool. So what we have here is a brand new workflow, and there's a few sections. Maybe I'll walk through the interface here for anyone who hasn't seen this before. But we have stages here, which are basically the stage that we just discussed about. So in our case, we're going to modify these. Not starting progress done is not what we want. And then here we have records, which I think you mentioned they're currently using a spreadsheet. And so this is a little bit like your spreadsheet. You basically have rows of information with different columns. We call them fields. And this is where you get to store anything that's relevant. And we'll modify that as well by adding new fields. And then we have a few other things up top that, in due time, I think I'll explain. We don't have to go through all of it yet. A few that I'll call out, I guess. Automation is going to come in handy later. And then in the data tab is where we'll create some forms. But again, we'll kind of get to that when we go. So the first thing I'll do actually is go into data and define the fields that are relevant. And we already thought about some of them here, really. Teacher name and some of the evaluation, additional information, and actually we may have also the appeal and some of the documents that we mentioned. So let's go here and have teacher name. Now, in practice, I imagine you don't want to be typing the name of the teacher all the time. So I'm actually going to remove this one and add a new field called teacher name. And the field type is basically assigning what kind of information does this column hold. And that's one big difference, I guess, with a spreadsheet where things can get messy because it's so easy and so free form. In here, we can add a little bit more structure to make sure that things conform, I guess, to a certain process. So single select, and then we will have the teacher's name. So maybe, I'll just have maybe John Doe, and then you come up with a name, Tanner.
Jane Doe.
There we go, Jane Doe. So we have two teachers here that we're evaluating, and this is a required field. Can't really have an evaluation without having a teacher. Once it's created, it also doesn't really make sense to change who the teacher is for any given evaluation. So this is one of those where as soon as you create an evaluation, you pick the teacher and that value stays the same for that evaluation. Now, the other fields we had were the actual evaluation. Teacher is well prepared. Teacher is well prepared for class. Teacher is organized and neat. I think there was a third one. Teacher knows its subject. And we had, evaluation. I think we called it additional comments. The comments are a long text. Long text basically means we can have multiple lines in the text field. So it's not a quick one. It's really a few paragraphs maybe. And for this one, we said, we had 1, 2, 3. So we can, there's a few ways of doing it, but maybe similar to the teacher name, we just have a few options here. Options being, 1, rarely, 2, sometimes, 2, sometimes, and then oops, sometimes, and then 3 all the time. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing here for some of the other ones. Single select, oh, oops, single select, 1 rarely, 2 sometimes, and then 3 all the time. So a little bit of setup here at first. Rarely, 2 sometimes, 3 all the time. Cool. So let's save that just as we go to make sure we don't lose any of it. And then some of the other fields that we mentioned were once we do send it to a teacher, they have a chance to make a decision. And so we'll call it teacher decision. And again, there are 2 options here. So using a lot of select fields here. One is approved, and then appeal. Actually, there we go. And then if they do appeal it, is where we want to have teacher, so appeal documents, and then maybe appeal reason. And in here, reason is a long form, and these are the documents that you mentioned, where we really want to let people maybe pick a few file attachments, probably no limits. And I think those are all the fields in this case. Can you think of any others, Tanner, here that makes sense?
Might be jumping ahead a little bit, but just thinking about notifications, maybe a teacher email field. And
yep.
you might have already been thinking about, but also we want to send two emails, I think. So teacher email and the principal email. So some way of saying like, this is me. I'm the principal filling this out right now.
Got it. Because in this case, there would be many principals working through these evaluations.
Yeah, there would be many principals, and like we were talking about before, it may be the case that these principals are users. Exactly.
Got it.
Flowdash.
So maybe what we'll do is, so I added an email one, which I think you're totally right. If we want to email them, we need to know where to email. And then the second one here is the principal, which is a person field, and person field is really anyone using the workflow. So it's anyone that's invited. So in our case, I'll probably set myself as principal. Maybe I'll invite you actually to this workflow, and it will be 2 principals working on this. But let's save this and actually get started. Sounds good?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Cool. So we're here. I'll go ahead and just invite you now. So it's tanner@flowdash.com. I'm going to make you an administrator. For now, there you go. So you can join. And like I mentioned earlier, this person field is anyone who is part of this workflow. So now it can be either you or I. And we'll go back to the task, and we'll see that all these columns just showed up into our workflow. Now, we may not always want to see all of the columns, or maybe we do, but maybe to keep it simple, I'm going to actually hide a few fields here. So I'm just going to remove the evaluation, the comments. Maybe we'll keep the decision here so it's easy to see, and hide all of that. So we really only keep on this screen what is most important, which is who's the teacher, who's the principal, the email, the decision they've made, and some times for when that was created and submitted. But any given time, if we want to sort of see the full details, we can actually go into this detail view where all the information is, and we'll kind of mess around with this view later. But for now, let's go and build the actual workflow and modify the stages.
So just to clarify, looking at this, like what do tasks? What is a task here? Yeah,
that's a great question. And so when we think about a workflow, you have many tasks. So a task is an instance of an evaluation, and tasks are different things depending on your workflow. So in this case, every task is an evaluation, and we can actually go ahead and change that just so it looks nicer. So if we go into settings, we can actually say the type. So every record in this workflow is an evaluation. We'll update it, and now what we have is a list of evaluations. And then we have, obviously stage and everything else. But yeah, that's a good call out. And this is actually how we will create a new evaluation. So maybe we can go ahead and create one actually. So I'll remove all of these here.
One thing I just thought of too, and this is jumping ahead past our little MVP here, but I imagine this could be useful across multiple years or even like multiple semesters. So maybe
Obviously.
later there would be like going back and, you know, I want to see the evaluations for 2021, you know, last year or this year.
Yeah.
Like school year, maybe.
Yeah, school year. That makes a lot of sense. So let's go ahead and create another one here, school year. And then maybe for this one, I mean, it can either be a date, but I think in this case, it may make sense to just have, 2021 as an option, and we'll kind of add the options as needed. This is also useful if we wanted to get more granular and say, 21 Q1 or the first trimester and whatnot. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to have. I think it just goes to show we don't really know quite as much as we should about this, but I think, thinking high level, I think that makes sense.
We're on the fly, man.
Yep. Cool. So let's actually create an evaluation just so we can show what happens here. So the principal, this is you, school year 2021 for Jane Doe, and her email. I'll actually put myself here just for testing purposes. So I'll just put Omar plus, Jane Doe at flowdash.com. And this is a draft, so we actually maybe don't really have all that information just yet. So let's create the evaluation, and it's in a not started stage, but now is the time to really build our process, our workflow, and have all of the different stages. So we're gonna hop over to the flow builder. And now in the flow builder, there's this visual, designer. It's basically just a way of defining the stages and how you move from one to the other, and then add a little magic here and there in terms of what emails get sent and so on. So it looks complicated, but it's actually not too bad. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just removing what was already there because we actually want to change everything. And this is where some of the work we've done earlier comes in handy. So we know we have 4 stages. So first it's a draft. And then once it's a draft and it gets submitted, we're waiting for the teacher approval. One thing I like to do for something that's in progress or waiting, kind of make it yellow, a little visual helper here that it's in progress. Appealed evaluation. So this is more on us, and I don't know, maybe blue. What do you think of blue?
Yeah, it's like a little sad, maybe.
Yeah, there we go. There's some action that's needed.
Yeah.
And then it's completed. It's done. And this is green. And one other thing I'll say is it's an end stage. And that's basically an indication that there's no more work left to be done once an evaluation is completed. And this is important in a few places. I mean, when we look at evaluation, we only see the active ones. When we look at analytics, we get some stats around time to completion, which depends on this end stage. So it's a small checkbox, but it's an important one to get right. Cool. So we have 4 stages, and now we get to decide, well, how do you go from one to the other? And this is where we have some choices. It can be linear. It doesn't have to. And then there's a concept of action that I'll dive into. But let's say from draft to waiting to teacher approval, that's a first action we can take. And what actions are, they're decisions that we can make that will have side effects. So when you have a draft, you've completed it. What is the decision you make? You want to maybe send it to the teacher. You want to publish it. Let's say publish. And this is the name of the action. And every action will trigger a set of steps. So what does it mean to publish a draft? Well, it means that we move it to waiting to the teacher approval. But we also said there's a few things that happen. This is when we send an email notification. And who do we send it to? This is where things start getting a bit magical, but we send it to the teacher's email. And what we're doing here is really cool, actually, because now we're defining this logic so that whenever we go through an evaluation, publish, and all these things happen. So you don't have to manually go send an email, come back. It's all taken care of. And this is really where some of those efficiency gains come in. And in here, what we're able to do is do these thing that's called, interpolation. So it allows you to take field data and put it here, and it's dynamic. So for every evaluation, it will pick that evaluation's teacher's email to send it the email. So it just all works really well that way. So a lot to unpack. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it makes sense to me. Definitely. But thinking about, so I'm a principal in our example, and sometimes, like I want to do a little bit of work, but I'll come back to it later, and like hence the draft stage.
Mhm.
So you've effectively defined, or are defining right now in the publish action, the one thing that I can do when it's in the draft stage, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So all
So
I
yeah.
can do is continue editing some fields, and then
Mhm.
once I'm done, I can do one action, and that's like a button I see on the page.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll kind of show you that button on the evaluation page as the only action you can take when you have a draft.
Awesome. I need some guardrails.
Yeah, we're gonna have some of those. So let me just quickly put in a subject and an email here. So I'll just say, evaluation draft for, and then maybe we'll have the school year. So it's and actually, if we want, we can have evaluation draft ready for this school year. And then we can have, hello. I guess maybe we should have done, first name, last name or something. We'll keep it here, just put teacher name. But, in practice, we may actually want to have a first name field. So it's a little bit more human than saying, hello, Jane Doe. That's that feels a bit, mechanical or robotic, but we'll go ahead with that for now. Your evaluation is ready for review. Below are your scores. And then this is where we can really start sharing the actual scores. So I'll put teacher is well prepared for class. This is a score. And then teacher is, I forget the second one, organized and neat. And then finally, teacher is knows its subject. Knows its subject. Cool. You will receive an approval form shortly. You can decide, or just shortly, thank you. And then we can just sign here with the, maybe the school board or the user. So, there's a few ways of signing it here, but let's just say thank you. I don't know, your principal. So we'll have this here for now. And then a few things I'll call out here. So teacher email, school year, it's basically whenever we're referencing one of these fields, we want to make sure we have those fields, because you can imagine it just doesn't look good if the school year is not set up and then we're sending people and the email's missing, and it just doesn't look very serious, basically. And so what we can do here, once we save this email, is leverage this thing called requirements. And what requirements are, they're basically guardrails that make sure that in order to publish an evaluation, certain pieces of information are provided. And this is, again, really important to make sure there's no embarrassing moments where data is missing and it's just a mess. I think it's always nice to have a little guardrail. So we'll go ahead and we're going to say certain fields are required. They need to be present. So teacher name and email, that's important. The score have to be set. I realize I forgot additional comments, so I'm going to add those, but that one is optional. So maybe maybe it's fine to submit an evaluation without additional comments. And the school year we want to have. So I'm going to go ahead and add these, and I'll just modify this email and say, additional comments here. What do you think? Did I forget anything here?
Oh, it's good. One thing for me, sometimes I do the thing on Gmail where I send the email and then I have to click undo because I realize I spelled something wrong, maybe in the email. Is there a way to like have a final sort of like check? It's like, are you super sure that you want to do this in Flowdash before I move forward? Like a confirmation thing?
Yeah. Let's see. User confirmation. Oh, let me save this here. Oh, there we go. So we have the user confirmation. This is what I'm guessing you're alluding to.
I'm leading the witness a
You're
little
leading
bit.
the witness
I know.
here. So let's do it. I wonder how, Tanner. Maybe there's got to be a way.
Maybe there's a way.
Cool. So there we go. We'll have a user confirmation. This is a sensitive thing. Just gonna make sure. Are you sure? This is gonna, and I think this is a good call out for anything that's gonna affect basically a customer or someone's gonna be emailed. If this is a bit of a sensitive action, just kind of, are you sure? This is serious. Something's gonna happen. You don't want to get it wrong.
Yes.
Cool. Well, let's actually try it out and then get an email and then see what comes out. How does that sound?
Do it.
Cool. So let's go here. So we have an evaluation here. I'm going to assign it to myself. And I'm going to open it. Well, technically you're the principal, so you would want to be doing this one, but I'll just go ahead and show some of these confirmation. So first thing is, you see this publish button is new. This is the publish action we defined with all the rules and so on. So if we click it, it's not letting us send it because we have some required fields in order to publish. And this is really where we have to score a person before we can move forward. So maybe we want to say, this Jane Doe is prepared all the time. I mean, Jane Doe is phenomenal. She's a great teacher. Yeah, we're lucky to have her. So all the time, just perfect score. And now we're ready to publish. Boom. So we got a confirmation. We entered all the information. Nothing's missing. And we move to waiting for teacher approval. What should have also happened is an email should get sent to the teacher in order to tell them that the draft is ready. But there's something else here I'm just noticing that maybe we can fix. We have this random number here that's showing up, and that's basically just a description for this field for this task, and that's something we can customize. It's basically a visual thing. When we're looking at this teacher, this is really the name of this task or this evaluation. So I'm going to go in settings and modify that quickly. It's what we call the record name. And so we will just say, the year evaluation for teacher name. And that's really, if we had to come up with a single line to describe this specific evaluation, this is what it would be. It's the 2021 evaluation for Jane Doe. So small little stylistic things, but these things do matter when you're using the system every day. And so I think it's nice to be able to put a little, polish here and there and make it a lot easier. And so if we go back here, what we're going to see is we are waiting for teacher approval. There's one evaluation in there. We have 0 draft, 0 appealed evaluation, 0 completed. And then if I kind of jump to my email, let me go over and open it. What we see here is we did get an email from Flowdash notification saying, hello, your evaluation is ready for review. Here are the scores. No additional comments. You'll receive an approval form shortly. So that's the first half, basically, of the process is done.
Awesome. Yeah. One thing I was thinking too, which if we have time at the end, maybe going back to, is I know it's assigned to you, but maybe there's a way of using assigned to as me as the principal. And it all kind of depends, I guess. Like, we would need to learn more about the desired behavior, but maybe it's assigned to me when there's something actionable to be done. So maybe it's still in the draft stage, and like we'll keep it assigned to me. But when I'm waiting for something, it's not. So it won't show up in a filter where I look for things that are assigned to me at the time.
Right.
Or we could keep those concepts separate too. And maybe there's like an additional layer of approval where like you're the superintendent or something, and you have to take a look at a lot of different things. Just kind of like either combining, we'd have to learn to combine or sort of separate concepts.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely, yeah, a lot of refinement we can do and decide. I think that's one of the beauty of, this system is you can really just decide what's right for you and for your business. And then it's the same person, one field. There's an approver, we had another person field. It goes through someone else to review, maybe, this is serious, someone's evaluation for the year. You want to have a second person read the additional comments. Before it goes out, you can actually have a reviewer. So we can really play with all of these levers and design it the way we want. And that's where the flow builder starts simple and then he kind of gets more and more comprehensive over time. So maybe what we'll do now is we'll create a form. And this is where we said, once we're waiting for the teacher approval, we also want to actually submit a form for them to approve or reject. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to create a new form. So let me go do that. And this is the maybe confirmation form. And so what forms are, I think if you think about Google form, it's a good example. It's basically a form where you have a few inputs that people can fill in. But one thing that's different is forms can either be brand new forms where you complete it, you have a new evaluation that comes in. That's how most forms work today, Google form included. But there's a second option, which we're going to use here is you have a form that updates an existing evaluation. So in this case, we're going to be emailing the teacher, and whatever they reply will update the evaluation that's assigned to them. So it won't be a new record. And I think that's really one of the pain points, actually, from what you were describing, where you needed to have something update on a cron job and none of that. I think that's going to be a lot more streamlined. So we'll just call it, evaluation review, or maybe, I don't know, just like evaluation, I'm blanking here.
Teacher evaluation.
Maybe like, yeah, review your evaluation.
I like it.
Like this. Yeah. Hello, you should have received your evaluation draft already. Please take a look and approve, the evaluation. Click and approve / appeal your evaluation.
Awesome. So 2 choices.
Cool.
As a teacher.
If you
we send it, then they can all looks good, and I'm gonna,
exactly
decide to approve and then just submit it. Or if something in that previous email that you sent that we were just looking at looks a little off, I'm like, I think I should have gotten even better score, maybe a 4.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist yet. You should invent a 4. Then I could say that on this form.
exactly. Yeah, and then we get to decide which information people are going to modify. And in here, I think we have 3, which is teacher decision, and then any supporting documents, and then the reason. And maybe we'll give it a teacher decision. That's a little bit dry for name. So we'll say I think approve appeal. So it's what I don't know, like what would you decide or something like that.
Choose an action, choose a decision or something.
Okay, yeah. So like choose a decision. Boom. And then appeal documents, appeal reason. And maybe I'll just say optional here so people know. Here, appeal documents, optional. That's basically it, actually. If we wanted, so in practice, what I would recommend is always, drop an image, put your logo, just looks more professional, and that's always nice. But for here, we, no logo, no image. We'll just keep this pretty succinct, basically. Yeah. And now that we have the form, I saved it. We can go back to our flow builder, and then when we publish.
Is there a way we can we require the decision field on this form?
Yeah, that's a good call out. There we go. Just doesn't make sense otherwise.
And they somehow forgot to fill it out.
Yep, 100%. Cool. So we'll save this here. You can preview it, I guess. Looks pretty good. Does what it's supposed to do. And then we'll go here, and in the publish action, not only do we email the teacher, but we also want to email them the form. And the rest is going to be pretty similar here, where we have the teacher email. And, you know, one thing I just realized is in the message, if we wanted, we could actually have the evaluation.
Just do a
So if we wanted, yeah, should we try that?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's actually remove this one. Let's
Simplify
add
it.
in. There we go. Hello, your evaluation ready below your scores. You know, please review and approve. Yeah, thank you. Boom. And then we'll go ahead and add the teacher email. And this is the confirmation form that we had. We'll save it. And so now once we publish, people get a form, they have some information, they fill them in. And this is where some of the automation, I guess, is going to kick in, which, you know, if you remember, you have waiting for teacher approval, and then it either moves to, you know, completed or appealed evaluation. But ideally, we would want that to kind of happen behind the scene as soon as people submit the form. And then if you remember on the form that we have here, we have this decision, which is the teacher decision field that we have. So we're going to head over to automation and basically create two scenarios. One is, you know, approve evaluation. And what we're going to say is whenever a value changes, when a field is updated, and it's a very specific field. It's the teacher decision field. And it's a very specific value. So it's when the teacher decision is approved. Then what we want to do is we want to move this automatically to the completed stage. So a lot to unpack here, but what we're saying is once someone submits that form, if they've approved the evaluation, so when the field teacher decisions updated and the value is approved, we automatically move it to completed. So we're going to do that, and then we need to do the same thing, but for appeal. So we're going to do the other side of it, which is appeal evaluation. And similarly, when a field is updated and a specific value is changed, which is a teacher decision, and that decision is appeal, then we want to move the form to appeal evaluation. If we wanted here, this is also where we can, you know, we can send an email actually to the principal. So we can, for example, say, okay, well, when there's an appeal, you kind of want to know about it. Maybe you want to know in both cases, I'm not sure, but we can say, you know, evaluation. So the 2020, so the school year evaluation for teacher name was appealed. And then we can just, you know, keep it simple, reason, appeal reason, maybe review appeal here. And we can actually have a link to the URL of this record so that if someone gets appeal, principal gets an email, they know how to click, look at it, and then make a final decision. So I'm going to create this as well. So we have two automations that basically do a little bit of work for us once someone fills in the form. And the last thing I'll do is once you have an appealed, evaluation, we mentioned that you can mark it as done. So I'll add the action here. And so basically draft, publish, email is sent, people fill it in, automation kicks in, moves it either to appealed evaluation or to completed. If it goes to appealed evaluation, you have the option to mark it as done at that point. Maybe celebrate with confetti. That one's always a fun one, and we'll take a look at it later.
So as a principal, my journey in all of this is basically my source of truth for teacher evaluations now is in Flowdash, and I can kind of look across different years. Like right now, you know, we just put 2021 school year. So my workflow for this is like come evaluation season for all the teachers for which I'm responsible for giving observations. I come into Flowdash and create a new evaluation like you did at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I choose the teacher that's relevant for. And I can come in and out, and the way that I kind of figure out what I still have to do is by going to ones that are in the draft state. then I can, once I'm done giving the evaluation and giving the appropriate evidence and like the comment section, the additional comment section that we sent, then I can publish it. So for me as a principal, this could be the end of the journey if all goes well.
That's true. Yeah.
Based on all you set up, because the teacher, Jane, is going to receive this, and assuming she opens up the email and then takes a look at the form and makes a decision, if she does approve, the next time I log back into Flowdash, it's already going to be changed. It's already going to be in the end stage, in the completed stage, and I don't have to do anything now.
Yeah.
But Jane could submit an appeal with some supporting documentation, and then that's my trigger to come back in, take a look at things, and then I'll move it to completed. One thing that, if we go actually back to the flow builder, that I think might be like an interesting like V2 of this is kind of building off of the done action, because maybe it's almost like a loop. Once Jane appeals, then I make changes and I add, the fourth, like she gets 4 for like superb performance. Then I send the email back to her again, and then she gets another opportunity to approve or reappeal for the 5.
I think so. I mean, I think if we wanted to do that, we could have something here where you can basically republish once something is appealed. And so, it's been appealed, and then we decide to publish it again. So there's a new round of review, essentially. We modify the information, we publish, and then it goes through a new round of appeal, and then eventually, it gets completed that way.
Yeah.
So that could be another way of doing it. For now, I'm going to kind of keep it done. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's, we can do, we can do all of those. And that could be a really nice feedback loop to just keep on improving based on the appeal until, we get the final okay. Cool. Well, let's try the whole thing end to end. I think we should have everything we want here. So let's do a final walkthrough and see if we forgot anything. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, new evaluation, Tanner, school year is here. This is for John this time. Again, we're gonna do Omar plus John here just so that we get the emails. We're gonna create it here. This is the draft. We'll open the draft. That reminds me, there's a few things we can actually modify here. Should we go ahead and modify the layout or just go through it as is?
Let's modify it now. We might need to modify it a little more.
Cool. So one thing I like to do is, again, if you're going through a lot of these evaluation, you want to make this view, optimized, I guess, for what you're doing. So if you go into layout builder, this whole view can be customized. And the way I would probably structure this is kind of have one panel where you just see the, what I call evaluation details. And then, or the high level fields. And for here, we don't really need everything. All we want to know is who's a principal, school year, teacher, email, but none of this stuff, basically. And then what we want to have is another panel on the right side. So I'm going to have basically another details table, but that one will be evaluation scorecard. And in that one, to keep things focused, what we actually want to show is going to be all of these, whether the teacher has done well and additional comments. So if we save this and we look at it here, back to the evaluation, it just feels easier to grok. There's a lot less here. And so in practice, this is where I can say, okay, well, I get it. This is for John Doe, this email, I'm on it. Let's go ahead and do the evaluation. Sometimes Joe, not always, but I will say Joe is very, very neat, knows its subject great. And then we'll leave a little comment, overall, great job, John. Maybe you can prepare a little better for class in the future. Clearly, I shouldn't be doing these evaluations. I don't think I'm fit for it, but you know, it's this is what we have. So we save it. One thing that's great here, you saw this little panel jump here. Basically, the activity log just recording who did what when. So later on, when John's like not very happy maybe of the wording, we can come back and say, okay, well, it wasn't Tanner who actually did the evaluation. It was Omar. So, you know, Omar is the person to blame maybe for the like attacked. But yeah, we have an activity log of everything that happens. And we're going to go ahead and publish it. Again, we got the confirmation that we added earlier. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Looks great. Publish. Now we're waiting for teacher approval. So there's nothing really we can do. And you can see it here. There's no action available. I should have gotten an email. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, I got an email here. Omar has sent you a form, condition confirmation form. Build time, that's interesting. I think we can probably make this a little bit nicer. But basically there's a form, this confirmation form, a review and complete. And there's a message here where you can see, okay, well, some additional comments. I don't know. I think I deserved better, me being John right now. So let's review this. I'm going to choose to appeal this document. And I think well prepared. I think I would say, you know, I'm very well prepared for my classes. I invite you to join the next one to see for yourself.
A little spicy, John. Okay.
There we go. I'm going to submit it here. It's been submitted, and there's a few things that should have happened here. And so if we go back here and we go back to the list, what we will see is it's still waiting for teacher approval. So sometime when it submits, oh, there we go. We changed. You know, it may take 2 or 3 seconds to update. And what we see is this record automatically went to appealed evaluation. And now we can open it. And what we see here is that there's not a lot of, we don't really see the appeal information. And so that's where we're going to continue to modify the screen a little bit. And we're going to do similarly to the scorecard here. We will have a details table here for the current record. And we will say appeal information, appeal details. And what matters here for the appeal is the teacher decision. So they decided to appeal the documents and the reason. And so we'll have here appear. And then the other thing is we only want to show this when we're on a specific stage. So only on some stages. And the main stage we want to see it is when it's in the appeal. Maybe when it's completed, arguably, but at least when it's under appeal.
That makes sense.
So if we go back here, this evaluation is in appeal. We can see the teacher decided, and they say, I'm well prepared for my class. Invite you to join the next one. And you know what? I think John's right. That was a little harsh. All the time. Again, we get to see that we've made a modification, move to completed. We're done. The evaluation is finished. We can go back here. There's no more active evaluations. Remember that end stage we set, but there is one completed one if we want to take a look at it at any time. So I think that basically concludes our use case. What do you think, Tanner? Is this it?
I love it. I love it. One thing I was thinking of when you were filling out the appeal form by John is, you know, if John decided he needed some more evidence, we did include that attachment field. So if he like took a selfie or something and attached that,
yeah,
and I think we could use that when you opened up the layout editor file preview block and basically just doing the same thing you did for appeal reason. And just showing it right there, like anything he sent in visible for us.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I think if we work on this appeal screen, I think I would almost move this here. And then on the appeal, I'll maybe show this document preview, which should be somewhere here, file preview. And then, yeah, just within this screen, you don't have to download any of the documents. We can show the appeal documents. And then they would show up right here, directly within the context. And, one other thing, I guess, is we'd want to make those only visible. You know what? Let's make it visible all the time for now. But yeah, then you would see the appeal details, the appeal documents, all in one place before confirming. I think that's a great call out. Again, just making things streamlined, no files on our desktop and sensitive information, just all in one place.
Totally. No tracking rogue files down in Google Drive or just on our computer.
Those are the worst.
Somewhere.
Exactly. Cool. Well, I think this is it. I think we just basically built a teacher evaluation workflow, and I didn't keep track of time, but not that long in the grand scheme of things. So it's I think it's ready for production, and maybe we'll have a link to a sample somewhere.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think we can get crazy and start building a lot of different interesting stuff off of this workflow too. Like a couple of things we mentioned, getting crazy with the workflow, adding some more branches off of that, keeping the loop, sort of seeding the data initially. I know this organization that I talk to keeps their information in a way that you can download it as a spreadsheet, or you can even connect to it as a database. And not to get too crazy, because we go into this in other videos, but there would be a way for us to connect to that and have that mapping of sort of teachers and principals in Flowdash and up to date with their other systems. But again, jumping ahead, there's a lot of cool stuff we can do, but I think this is already an improvement from kind of the pain point we talked about at the beginning of all those error messages getting sent out erroneously to principals using the hack on Google Sheets and Google Forms.
Yeah, a whole lot more that can be done. But to your point, yeah, this is it's good enough to get started, but that sky's the limit. Cool. Well, looking forward to the next build time.
Me too.
And then if anyone has some exciting use cases they want to see, please write them down in the comments. Let us know. Send us an email. This is fun. We love doing these, so let us know what's useful, and we'll make more of them.
See you guys next time.
All right. See ya.